In 1964, a milk route driver in Rockford, Illinois, named Ray Halverson retired at 60, his house paid off, his Ford paid off, and $12,000 in the bank. He never earned more than $6,000 a year, and his wife Ellen never worked for wages. On the top shelf of the hall closet sat a dented green cash box, and every Friday, before he took off his coat, Ray opened it. His 4 children were grown before they understood what he put in it and why it came before everything else. Ray built wealth on $6,000, while we cannot seem to build it on 100, not with apps or advisors or index funds, but with rules his father drilled into him after the bank took the family farm in 1932. We inherited the bigger paycheck and threw away every rule that would have let us keep it. The same rules Ray kept in that green box and ran through every number on this list. Number 17 cut Ray's 30-year mortgage nearly in half, and he made his last payment 15 years early. Number 14 contradicts everything a planner will tell you about the market, and it was the only thing Ray ever borrowed against, once, to bury his father. And number 1 is what Ray kept in that green box, the single rule that turned $6,000 a year into more than most build on 100,000. These 30 ways were not about being poor and proud. They were about turning a small wage into a large life, something a big wage no longer seems able to do. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 30 genius ways 1960s families built more wealth on $6,000 than Americans on $100,000 do now. Number 30, save a percentage, not a leftover. This was the rule that made Ray's small paycheck behave like a large one. He never saved what was left over, because on $6,000 a year, nothing is ever left over. He saved a fixed share off the top, 12 cents of every dollar, into the green box every Friday. A family earning $100,000 today saves nothing because they wait for the leftover that never comes. The percentage does not care how big the check is. Ray understood that at 30. Save the share, not the scraps. Number 29. Buy half the house the bank offered. The Rockford Bank looked at Ray's $6,000 and offered a loan that would swallow it. He laughed and bought half of it. He and Ellen chose a narrow 2-bedroom on Kishwaukee Street, not the brick house across town the loan officer kept pointing to. The gap Ray refused to borrow became the retirement he reached at 60. A bigger house is not more wealth. It is more payment. He bought the house the bank called too small and bought his freedom with it. Number 28, 25% down in cash. Before they toured a single house, Ray and Ellen had a quarter of the price in cash. No down payment, no house. On $6,000 a year, that meant 4 years of the green box, and they did it. Ray counted $1,500 onto the loan officer's desk in 1948 and shook his hand as a buyer, not a beggar. Today, a 6-figure family buys with 3% down and rents the rest for 30 years. The down payment was not a hurdle the bank set. It was a wall Ray built himself. Number 27, the 10-year car, bought used, paid cash. Ray drove a milk truck for the dairy, so his own car only had to be honest, not new. He bought a 3-year-old Ford for $400 in 1955 and drove it 14 years. On $6,000 a year, he could not afford a car payment, so he never made one. Today, a $100,000 family carries 2 payments and calls it normal. A new car was not a reward to Ray. It was a wage driving away. He kept the Ford until the floor rusted through. Number 26, cash on the barrelhead. For anything that was not the house, Ray had one line: No cash, no purchase. He and Ellen saved for the icebox, then the stove, then the television, and carried each one home free and clear. When Ellen wanted a wringer washer in 1957, they waited 4 months and paid $40 in bills counted on the counter. Ray's own father had lost the farm to a run of missed payments, and Ray never forgot it. Cash made you feel the price. Credit taught you to forget it. What you cannot buy with cash, you cannot yet afford. Number 25. Never finance a thing that loses value. Ray borrowed for exactly one thing in his life, the house, because the house climbed. Everything that fell in value, he paid for in cash. A man 2 doors down financed a boat in 1961 and paid on it years after it rotted on the trailer. Ray watched and never made the same trade. On $6,000, a single bad loan could sink a family. So he stayed on the right side of the math. Borrow for what climbs, never for what falls. Number 24. Bank the raise. Live on the old wage. When the dairy gave Ray a raise, his life did not move by $1. The raise went straight to the green box. He earned $400 more in 1959 and lived exactly as he had the year before. This is the rule 6-figure earners break without noticing. Every raise becomes a bigger life, and the saving never starts. A raise is only a raise if you keep it. Spent, it is just a bigger leak. Ray kept every one.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for people like us who still believe the old ways worked best. It's the forgotten money rules that working-class families live by. The kind that built real wealth on a single income, so you never have to live paycheck to paycheck again. But this wisdom is disappearing, and once it's gone for good. I've put together 2 books for you plus a free bonus. Imagine how much more peace of mind you could have a year from now by putting these forgotten habits back to work. Scan.
Number 23. Bank every windfall. The Halverson house ran on the base wage alone, so every extra dollar was free to vanish into savings. The tax refund, the Christmas bonus, the holiday overtime on the route. None of it touched the kitchen, because the kitchen was built to need none of it. Ray banked a $200 bonus in 1960, and the children never knew it existed. Extra money was not for living. It was ammunition. The windfall you spend is a weekend. The windfall you save is a foundation. Number 22. The savings account across town. Ray opened a second account at a bank clear on the other side of Rockford on purpose. A fixed $10 went in every payday and effectively disappeared. The bank was too far to visit on a whim. No card, no quick withdrawal. Out of sight became out of reach, and out of reach became, in time, a small fortune. Ray knew his own weak Fridays too well to keep the money close. The account was not an investment, it was a fence around his own temptation. Keep your savings where your worst impulse cannot walk. Number 21. The Coffee Can Emergency Fund. The green box was for the future. The coffee can, down on the cellar shelf, was for disaster. $2 or $3 went into the can every week for the furnace, the roof, the transmission. When the furnace died in the winter of 1963, Ray paid from the can and borrowed nothing. His father had lost a house in the Depression for want of exactly this cushion. On $6,000 a year, that can was the whole difference between a hard week and a lost home. The can earned no interest. It earned the right to never beg. Number 20. Buy it once. Ray paid more than he wanted to, exactly once, and then never paid again. One good hammer, one good coat, one good pair of boots. The cheap thing broke, got replaced, and broke again. Ellen bought one cast-iron skillet in 1952 that her granddaughter still cooks in. On a small wage, the careful buyer spent less by spending more up front. Modern earners buy cheap and buy often, and never notice the bleed. It was not extravagance. It was arithmetic. Cheap is expensive on a long enough calendar. Here is the comparison the title is built on. $6,000 in the mid-1960s, adjusted for inflation, is worth roughly $60,000 today. So a modern family on $100,000 out-earns Ray Halverson in real terms by a wide margin. And yet, in the mid-1960s, the American family saved close to 9 cents of every dollar. By the 2000s, that rate had fallen near zero, and household debt had climbed past $17 trillion. The wage got bigger. The wealth got smaller. What Ray had was not more money. It was a bigger gap between what came in and what went out, and the discipline to guard it. We earn more and keep less. That is the whole story. Number 19, the backyard garden. Half the family's summer food grew behind the Halverson garage. A few packets of seed returned crates of tomatoes, beans, and sweet corn. Ellen canned what the garden gave and fed 6 people through the Illinois winter on it. On $6,000 a year, that garden was a raise the taxman never saw. The 4 children weeded on Saturdays and hated every minute, then kept gardens of their own for life. It was not a hobby. It was a grocery store that took no money. Number 18, the workbench in the garage. Whatever broke in the house went to Ray's bench before anyone thought of buying another. A dead lamp, a leaking faucet, a busted kitchen chair, all fixed with a few cents of parts and an hour of Saturday. Ray kept the family's appliances running for decades with a manual and a coffee tin of screws. The repair bill on a small wage was close to zero on purpose. Today, a 6-figure family calls a professional for a 15-cent washer. It was not thrift for its own sake. It was a second income hiding in the garage. Number 17, the extra payment that killed the mortgage. Ray's 30-year mortgage was never going to take 30 years. He sent 1 extra principal payment every year, sometimes 2, and each dollar skipped the interest and ate the loan from the back. 1 extra payment a year cut his note nearly in half. Ray made his last payment in 1959, 15 years early, and burned the papers in the cellar furnace. On $6,000 a year, he did it a few dollars at a time. He did not manage the debt. He killed it. There is a universe between those 2 words. Number 16, the payroll savings bond. The easiest saving Ray ever did took 1 signature and no willpower. He signed a form at the dairy, and each payday a fixed $3 came out before the check reached his hand. It bought a savings bond. The money was gone before the wanting started. Ray cashed his first bond the winter the roof gave out, and slept dry under a paid-for one. The deduction was not a sacrifice. It felt like nothing, which was the point. Money you never touch is money you never lose. Number 15, the Christmas Club. Ellen kept a Christmas club at the Rockford Savings Bank, and it looked like a holiday gimmick. It was the family's savings reflex hidden in a Christmas card. She put $2 a week in from January, and 50 weeks later drew out $100 in cash. Every Halvorsen Christmas of the 1950s was paid for before December, and January carried no bill. Nearly half of American banks once offered a version of it, then quietly let it die when the credit card paid them more. It earned no interest. It paid for Christmas in advance. Number 14, whole life as a locked box. Ray's whole life policy was insurance for Ellen and the kids. It was also a savings account he could not talk himself out of. He paid the premium every month like a sacred bill, and it built cash value somewhere too dull and too locked to raid on a weak Friday. Ray borrowed against it exactly once, in 1953, to bury the father who had lost the farm, and repaid it inside a year. It was not the fastest way to build money. It was the way that could not be unbuilt in a weak moment. Number 13, blue chips and reinvested dividends. Ray never traded and never chased. He bought two boring companies that made things people always needed and let them pay him twice, $20 a month, into the same two stocks for 30 years. Then he did the part that mattered. He reinvested every dividend, so the checks bought more shares that paid more dividends. On $6,000 a year, $20 a month was a real cut, and it compounded into real money. Jumpier men sold at the bottom. Ray held. The man who reinvests is paid by the same dollar twice. Number 12, the pension left untouched. Ray had a pension from the dairy, and one ironclad rule about it: hands off always. He never borrowed against it, never cashed it out. When men on the route changed jobs and took the lump sum, they spent it. Ray rolled his forward and pretended it was not his to spend. He met his future self early, with a paid-off house and $12,000 already waiting. The lump sum was not a windfall. It was a retirement someone tried to hand you early. Guard the old man's money. He is the only one who cannot earn more. Number 11, the handed-down wardrobe. Ellen repaired clothes instead of replacing them, and the family was no poorer for it. A torn seam met her needle. A worn collar was turned and sewn back fresh. A winter coat passed through 3 Halverson children and a cousin before it wore out. On $6,000 a year, the mending basket by Ellen's chair was a budget line all its own. It was not shabbiness. It was money that stayed home. The coat you do not replace is a retirement you reach a little sooner. In the winter of 1932, a bank in southern Wisconsin foreclosed on the Halverson family farm. Ray was 28. He watched his father, a man who had never missed a Sunday or a debt he meant to pay, stand in the yard while strangers carried out the furniture. The farm was gone over a loan the family could not cover in a single bad year. Ray did not weep, and he did not curse the bank. He went home and started a coffee can. Every rule on this list was born in that yard, in that winter, in that one unbearable afternoon. He decided, at 28, that no bank would ever stand in his yard. It never did. The green box in the hall closet was the promise he made that day, kept for the next 40 years. Number 10, the cellar pantry. The Halverson basement shelves held next winter before winter ever came. Ellen bought in bulk when the price was low and canned the garden every fall. 100 jars and cans lined the cellar wall beside the coffee can and the furnace. On $6,000 a year, buying at last year's price was a raise nobody handed you. The full cellar was ordinary in Rockford then, not survivalist. It was not hoarding, it was buying time, cheap, and spending it dear. The cheapest food on the shelf is the food you bought a season ago. Number 9, the home that earned its keep. The narrow house on Kishwaukee Street was not only shelter, it was put to work. When the oldest boy left for the Army in 1958, Ray and Ellen rented his room to a young mill hand for $10 a week. That $10 covered the property, taxes, and then some. On a small wage, a house that earned was worth 2 that only cost. It was not crowding. It was a second income living down the hall. A house that only takes money is a house half used. Number 8. Layaway instead of interest. When Ellen wanted the children something they could not yet pay for, she did not finance it. She laid it away. The store held the bicycle in the back, and she paid it down a little each week until it was theirs. The day it came home, they owed nothing. Ellen put a red bicycle on layaway in October 1956 and paid the last dollar the week before Christmas. On $6,000 a year, layaway meant a Christmas with no January bill. It was not slower. It was free. Layaway charged you time. Credit charges you forever. Number 7. Ellen's EGG money. Ellen drew no wage, but she ran a quiet economy of her own. 6 hens in the backyard, jars of preserves, sewing done for neighbors, eggs sold off the back step for pennies a dozen. The coins went into a tin in the cupboard, and that tin was hers alone. It bought the children's shoes and patched the gaps the $6,000 wage never reached. One year, Ellen funded the whole family Christmas out of egg money. It never showed on Ray's pay stub, but it showed in the bank. It was not pocket change. It was a second income that asked no boss for permission. Number 6. The quiet street. Ray and Ellen bought on a working-class block when they could have stretched for a finer one. They chose the neighbors on purpose. The men on Kishwaukee Street packed lunches, drove old cars, and did not measure their lives against a catalog. The pressure to outspend simply did not live there. On $6,000 a year, the wrong street could bankrupt you keeping up. The right one did the discipline for free. A family becomes the 5 households nearest it. Ray picked his street and picked half his future with it. Number 5. The Sunday ledger. Every dollar that came in and went out was written down by hand, once a week. Ellen sat at the kitchen table on Sunday and entered every figure in a 5-cent notebook. Groceries, gas, the light bill, the dime for the collection plate. On $6,000 a year, a leak of a few dollars a week mattered, and the ledger caught every one. No app, no advisor, a pencil, a notebook, and the truth. It was not bookkeeping, it was control. You cannot keep what you never count. Number 4. Teach the children at the kitchen table. Ray did not leave the rules to chance. He drilled them into all 4 children before they could earn. He sat each one down at 10 years old and explained the whole of it in half an hour. Pay yourself first. Owe no man. Buy used, buy once. He walked his youngest to the Rockford bank to open a passbook with 75 cents and had the teller stamp it by hand. That child retired mortgage-free on a schoolteacher's salary. The lesson cost Ray nothing. It costs the banks billions in foregone interest, which is exactly why no one teaches it for them. It was not a lecture. It was an inheritance. Number 3. One wage, one life. Ray built his entire life to run on a single dairy wage and banked anything above it. When overtime came, or a season of extra root work, the household did not grow to meet it. The needs were nailed to $6,000, and everything above was building material. The 2-income life was later sold as the path to more. For Ray, a second dollar was never the lifestyle. It was the escape route. He did not earn his way out early. He kept his way out early. Ray ran a whole family on one wage and retired before the men who earned double. Number 2, owe no man. That was the rule. The whole rule. Not manage your debt, not use credit wisely. Owe no man. If Ray could not pay cash, he did not buy. He borrowed only for the house, because the house remained. And he killed even that loan 15 years early. Everything else he waited for. A man who owed nothing could walk away from a bad job, a bad year, a bad deal. That walking away was Ray's whole freedom. His father had owed a bank one bad year and lost the farm for it. Ray owed no one and never stood in his own yard while strangers carried out the furniture. It was never old-fashioned. It was just unprofitable to everyone but him. Number 1, pay yourself first. The simplest rule on the list. The quietest. The one almost nobody keeps now. This was the green box on the top shelf of the hall closet, and here, at last, is what Ray put in it. On every payday, before the mortgage, before the groceries, before a single bill, he opened the box and put his own share in first. Some Fridays it was $10. Some Fridays it was $2. The amount never mattered. The order was everything. He never saved what was left at the end of the month because on $6,000 a year, nothing is ever left. He paid himself first into that box every Friday for 40 years. When Ray died in 1981, his 4 children opened the closet and found the box and the passbook it had fed, $12,000, on a wage that never broke $6,000. That was the thing they never understood as children. He had been building it in front of them the whole time. It was not savings. It was sovereignty. Ray Halverson retired at 60 with a paid-off house, a paid-off Ford, and more in the bank than he had earned in any 2 years of his life, on $6,000 a year. He was not lucky, and he never earned a large wage. He followed 30 small, boring, unfashionable rules that turned a milk route into a life a 6-figure earner cannot seem to buy. None of them required a degree, an advisor, or a subscription to anything. They required discipline, the willingness to look at money the way a carpenter looks at lumber, as material, not magic. These were not the habits of the rich. They were the habits of the free. Ray learned them in a Wisconsin farmyard in 1932, watching strangers carry out his father's furniture, and he spent 40 years making sure it never happened to him. Wealth was never the size of his paycheck. It was the size of the gap and the discipline to guard it. We traded that gap for a bigger number and a stack of payments, and called it progress. The bigger number came. The wealth did not. But the rules have not changed. They are still plain, still boring, still free, and they are still sitting in a green box on a closet shelf, waiting for anyone willing to open it and put their own share in first. This is historical content, not financial advice. Consult a professional for your situation.